In this short lesson, we're going to look at order of operations. Order of operations is a really important math concept. I'm sure you've heard of it before now, but I just want to re-emphasize how you always have to be considering it when you're doing mathematics. If you're not, then there's a good probability that you're going to make a mistake, you'll get the wrong answer, you'll get frustrated. So please give special attention to this, as I said, a brief lesson and the importance I'm trying to convey of it. So number operations must be done in order. And you can see there's 3 exclamation points there. That's to show how very important it is. They must be done in order. In math, we know we've got something right. At least you know you got something right if you practice some questions, you check your answers in the homework, then you get the same answer as the one that you're supposed to get. It's very frustrating if you think you're doing things right and you're getting the wrong answer. I don't know what percentage of the time the wrong answer is caused by wrong order of operations, but I can definitely tell you from experience it's quite high. So the order that we have to follow is referred to as BEDMAS. That's an acronym that helps us just remember what order to do things in. And you may already know it. It's brackets, exponents, division, I can spell, multiplication, addition, and subtraction. I would say last but not least subtraction, but in a way, addition and subtraction are kind of the least. Subtraction. There we go. Not least as in unimportant, but they're certainly last, and they're the ones that come after we've dealt with all the other ones. So if you got a question, if you see brackets, you start with them, and all that means is do what is inside the brackets first. Sometimes we also use brackets just to separate things. So when they talk about doing brackets first, they don't mean just if there's a number inside brackets. They mean if there's operations inside the brackets. Think of that like a separate question and deal with that completely and then work your way out. So it's an inside-out kind of way of thinking about it. Then we deal with exponents. Then we deal with division and multiplication. And these two are actually equal. As in, division isn't really before multiplication. It's exactly the same as multiplication. So how do you decide which one to do first? If you've got a question that has both division and multiplication in it, it's easy. Whichever one is farther to the left. In English, we read sentences from left to right. And in many ways, we should read math questions from left to right as well. If it's a bunch of numbers and operators, then we should go from left to right. And if we have division and multiplication, whatever one comes first is the one that we do first. And the same thing goes for addition and subtraction. They're also equal. We don't do one before the other. It doesn't matter as much for addition and subtraction, to be honest, because you'll probably get the same answer whatever order you do addition and subtraction in. But it's very important for multiplication and division because you'll get very different answers if you divide before multiplying or vice versa. So for that, we work from left to right. I'll say for equal operations, work from left to right. And I'll put an asterisk beside it because very important, especially for division and multiplication, as I already said. So let's look at some examples and see how this actually plays out. So in the first example, I see there's a plus sign, there's a divide sign, there's brackets, there's an exponent. Well, again, brackets means if there's operations within the brackets, do them first. And there's definitely operations within these brackets. Even within those operations, there's an order though. So look, ignore the squaring for now and just look at this, what I've highlighted in yellow, almost like its own problem. And again, choose which one comes first. So if I've got a plus and a divide inside the brackets, divide comes first. So I'm going to leave that 3 where it is, and I'm going to divide the 6 and the negative 3, not negative, 6 divided by 3 is equal to 2. So the plus sign stays the same. I just do 6 divided by 3, and then I square it. Notice how I wrote down the squared. I'm rewriting, I'm putting an equal sign out front. That's on purpose because this line I'm writing here is equal to the line above it. So some people, I find, have a tendency to want to just write down the part they're working on. So sometimes I'm going to write over here what not to do. I'll see people look at this question, they'll go, oh, okay, 6 divided by 3 is 2. And then they'll go, 3 plus 2 is 5. And 5 squared is 25. There's nothing wrong with those math operations. In fact, it's great that you know all those math operations. The problem that that we have with doing it this way is I'm supposed to be showing line by line things that are equal, as I showed here. So I need to write down not just what I'm working on, but the other things I'm not working on as well, so that each line is equal to the line that comes before it. So even though all I did in this second line was divide 6 by 3, I still wrote down the 3 plus and the brackets and the squared. And then in the next line down, all I'm going to do is add the 3 and the 2 together. But I'm still going to write down the brackets and the squared because I need to keep it equal to the next line, or the above line. Now 5 squared equals 25. Each one of these 3 lines, 1, 2, 3, 4, those are all equal to each other, and you need to make sure that you write it this way so that it is equal to each other. If you do something like what I had done over on the left, I will point out that it's great that you can do the math operations, but you will not get full marks on a quiz or an assignment for doing it that way because it's not proper form. And part of math is about using proper form. Just like in English, we're expected to use capitals, punctuation, supposed to use proper form. In math, we are as well, too. All right, let's look at the next one. This one looks more complicated, and I put a little word of advice for how to deal with this one. For multiple brackets, work from the innermost to the outside. So that means we got a couple of brackets. We got these square brackets, and then we got round brackets inside them, 2 sets of round brackets inside them. I can do more than one thing per line as long as I remember to write down even the stuff I'm not working on. So I'm not going to use this 4 right away, but I'm going to write it down. And then inside these brackets here, I've got 32 minus 5 squared. So order of operations, just out of that, I need to do the exponent first, right? So if I just do the exponent first, then again, I'm not working on the 32, but I write it down. I just do the 25, which is what I get from 5 squared. Likewise, in these brackets, I've got a square or a cubed and a minus 1. The exponent comes first, so 2 cubed is equal to 8, but I'm still writing down the minus 1. I'm still writing down the square bracket. So everything's getting written down, even the stuff that's not being worked on. Sorry, I forgot a bracket there at the front. So again, still working from the inside out. This 4 is still not being worked on. But the next thing is I've got 32 minus 25 in this bracket. So that's the next step, and I'll write that as 32 minus 25 is 7. I could put that in brackets. I don't have to put it in brackets. It's your choice. So I could write it like that, And by the way, I always put a little line through my 7s just so they don't look so much like 1s. Or I could write it like that. Either way, I'm not required to have, I don't require to have the brackets, but they mean the same thing. So since I don't need them, I'll get rid of them at this point. And then I've got 8 minus 1, which is equal to 7. Okay, now I've got to deal with 7 minus 7. That's my next thing. So I've worked my way out of the innermost brackets, and 7 minus 7 equals 0. So now I've got 4 times 0, and anything times 0 equals 0. So that would be my final answer. For the next example, we have, or the final example actually, we have a fraction. We've got -2 in brackets cubed minus 10 all over -3, not in brackets, squared. So we're going to get a chance to practice our powers like we saw in the last lesson as well. And here's an important tip for questions that look like this. Simplify the numerator and the denominator completely, then divide. So dividing comes last, in other words, when it's set up like a fraction. That's our last step. So the numerator is the top of the fraction in case you forgot, and denominator is the bottom. But I'm still going to follow order of operations. So if I just look at the numerator, I can almost think of it like it's in brackets. So if I just look at the numerator, the first thing that I need to do is the exponent before I do the subtraction. So -2 to an odd exponent. We've seen that if we have a negative number inside brackets to an odd exponent, it's going to turn out negative. And then I can just go 2 times 2 times 2 gives me 8. So it's going to be -8. And then I've got -10, which I'm just going to write down again. I need to write it down even though I'm not using it in this step. And then on the bottom, I've got -3, not in brackets squared, so it's definitely going to turn out negative because that negative sign is not affected by the exponent 2, and then the 3 times 3 is just 9. There's still more simplification I can do on the top. -8 minus 10. Remember, one way we can think of that is, since they both have the same sign, is we can add them together. 8 plus 10 is 18, and they're going to keep that negative sign, so it's -18. So it's got -18 over -9. Now I've simplified the top as much as I can and the bottom as much as I can. This is when I get to the division. I divide as my last step, all right? And we know that a negative divided by a negative simplifies down to a positive. So it's plus. I don't have to write the plus down, but I'll write it just since I'm talking about it. 18 divided by 9 is 2. I'll get rid of that plus sign just because I don't like writing them down if I don't need to. I mean, I'll write it down so that you'll see that it's there, but we understand that if there's no sign there, it's positive. Okay, so practice. Take a look at the homework questions, the practice questions. That's the way to master anything like this.